The blood drops led through 3 feet of snow to Tom Brennan's cabin door, each crimson spot screaming against the white, like accusations he'd spent 15 years trying to silence. At 58, the former Marine thought he'd witnessed every horror war could conjure. He was wrong. The knocking came again, weak, desperate, dying. Rex, his German shepherd, growled low beside him, ears pinned back in that particular way that meant danger and protect simultaneously. Tom's hand hovered over the deadbolt while his Purple Heart gathered dust in a drawer, and his estranged daughter's last voicemail, 3 years old, played on loop in his memory. "Dad, I need you." He'd deleted it, hadn't called back. Now someone else was dying on his porch. The small voice cut through the blizzard's howl, through his whiskey haze, through every excuse. "Please, sir, they beaten my mama. She's dying." Tom Brennan opened the door. Leave a like and share your thoughts in the comments along with the city you're watching from now. Let's continue with the story. Tom Brennan had been 58 years upon this earth, and many of those years carved deeper lines in him than his age allowed. A widower's weight rested on his shoulders. 2 years since Sarah's cancer took her. 3 years since he'd heard his children's voices. The cabin in Whitetail County, Montana, was his only sanctuary now, its logs darkened with years of winters and silence. At 6'2", he still carried the frame of a Marine, though his left leg dragged slightly where shrapnel remained lodged near his spine, a souvenir from Kandahar that the VA doctors said was too dangerous to remove. His hands bore scars from a decade of combat, and his eyes held the particular emptiness of men who'd watched brothers die while they lived. Those who knew him in town spoke of his isolation before they spoke of his service. The Marine with the dog, they called him, the one who kept to himself, who bought supplies once a month and disappeared back into the national forest like a ghost. He did not attend church socials nor seek the company of other veterans. He kept his words few and his world smaller still. Rex was his only companion, a 70-pound German shepherd with a dark sable coat and ears that missed nothing. The dog was 5 years old, a former military working dog who'd served alongside Tom in Afghanistan, detecting IEDs with a nose that had saved countless lives. They'd both been injured in the same explosion that killed 4 of Tom's squad. Tom had fought through military bureaucracy to adopt Rex when they both retired, unable to bear the thought of his partner ending up in a shelter or worse. The dog mirrored his trauma. Rex flinched at car backfires, circled 3 times before lying down, and watched doorways with the vigilance of a soldier who'd never left the war. But while Tom drowned his memories in whiskey, Rex simply stayed, a constant, uncomplaining presence that asked nothing except to remain by his side. Tom lived on $1,800 a month in disability payments. $900 went to the mortgage on a cabin he'd inherited from his late father-in-law. $300 to medications he sometimes skipped when money ran tight. The rest kept him and Rex fed barely. His Purple Heart and Bronze Star gathered dust in a drawer. His wedding photos lay face down on the mantel. His children's numbers remained in his phone, but he hadn't had the courage to dial them in 3 years. He'd convinced himself that isolation was safety, that distance protected others from his broken pieces. He told himself every night, with his 3rd glass of whiskey warming his hands, that he was doing everyone a favor by staying away. That was before the knock, before the blood in the snow, before a 7-year-old girl named Emma made him remember that some doors, once closed, trap you inside your own hell. The child collapsed forward into his arms before Tom could process what he was seeing. She weighed almost nothing, maybe 50 pounds soaking wet, and she was definitely soaking wet. Snow and ice clung to her thin nightgown like a death shroud. Her skin held the waxy pallor of advanced hypothermia, lips gone from blue to purple. Tom carried her inside, his combat medic training overriding every instinct to stay uninvolved. Rex moved with him, pressing close to the girl as Tom laid her near the fire. The dog's body heat would help. Tom stripped off her frozen socks with hands that had performed this exact triage 100 times in Afghanistan, revealing feet so frostbitten the toes had gone white. "Stay with me," Tom commanded, his voice falling into the calm cadence of a man who'd talked dying soldiers through their last moments. "What's your name?" "Emma." Her teeth chattered so violently she could barely form the word. "Emma Clark." And Tom wrapped her in wool blankets and his late wife's sleeping bag, positioning Rex beside her. The dog's warm bulk pressed against her small frame, his breath steaming in the cold cabin air. Tom heated broth on the wood stove, forcing his hands to stay steady, even as his mind screamed questions he wasn't ready to ask. "Your mama," he said quietly, kneeling beside her. "Where is she?" "The Miller trailer." Emma's eyes struggled to focus. "By Clearwater Creek. She's not moving anymore. There's so much blood." Tom's hands froze. The Miller trailer. His father-in-law's old place. Abandoned for years after the old man died. He felt something crack open in his chest. A door he'd kept locked for 15 years. "How long ago did you leave her?" "I don't know. Long time. I had to find help." Emma's small hand clutched his sleeve with surprising strength. "My daddy. He's Deputy Clark. He works for Sheriff Morrison. When Mama tries to tell people, they don't believe her. They say Daddy's a good man." Tom's jaw tightened. Dalton Clark. He knew the name. Everyone in Whitetail County knew the deputies. Young guy, maybe late 30s, always seemed professional at the feed store. Tom had never suspected. But then again, he'd never suspected a lot of things until it was too late. "When does your daddy's shift end?" 10 o'clock, Emma's voice cracked. "He'll come home. He always comes home. And when he sees we're gone—" Tom checked his watch. 9:13 p.m. 47 minutes. "How far to the trailer?" 2 miles. Through the forest." Her eyes filled with tears that froze on her lashes. "Please, mister. She's my mama. She's all I got." Tom stood abruptly, pacing to the window. Through the frost-covered glass, the blizzard raged with the kind of violence that killed people. Visibility was 0. Temperature had dropped to 15 below. No one in their right mind would go out in this. But a woman was dying. A woman in his father-in-law's trailer. His mind flashed to Kandahar. Lieutenant Morrison, bleeding out in the sand while Tom held pressure on a wound that wouldn't stop hemorrhaging. "I can't die here, Brennan. I can't." But he had. They all had, eventually. Everyone except Tom and Rex. He heard Sarah's voice from her deathbed, morphine soft but insistent. "Stop hiding from life, Tom. Stop punishing yourself for surviving." He heard his daughter Jennifer's voicemail from 3 years ago, the one he'd deleted. "Dad, I need you. I'm in trouble. Please call me back." He'd never called back. Rex whimpered, sensing Tom's distress. The dog moved to him, pressing his massive head against Tom's leg. Tom's hand dropped to Rex's scarred ears, finding comfort in the familiar gesture. "Sir?" Emma's small voice cut through his spiral. "Nobody else will help. I knocked on 3 houses. They said to go home, talk to my daddy, but Daddy's the one who—" She couldn't finish. Tom Brennan had spent 3 years believing he was too broken to save anyone. But this child had run 2 miles barefoot through a killing blizzard because she believed someone, somewhere, had to be brave enough to care. He pulled his coat from the hook. "Rex," he commanded, "gear up." Tom dressed Emma in his late wife's wool sweater and thermal socks, both far too large, but they were dry and warm. He bundled her in his heavy coat, wrapping her like a cocoon until only her pale face showed. Rex waited by the door, his military vest already on, the faded patches reading MWD still visible after years of service. The blizzard hit them like a physical blow. Wind screamed through the pines at 40 miles per hour, driving snow horizontally into their faces with enough force to blind. Tom held Emma against his chest, using his body as a windbreak, while Rex pushed ahead through drifts that reached the dog's shoulders. Visibility was less than 10 feet. Tom navigated by memory and instinct, following the tree line toward Clearwater Creek. His legs screamed where the shrapnel pressed against nerve endings, each step sending lightning bolts up his spine. He ignored it. Pain was just information. It couldn't kill you unless you let it. Emma directed from within the coat, left at the big pine, through the clearing, past the frozen creek. Rex's training took over. The German Shepherd's sense of smell was 100,000 times more sensitive than a human's. He could track Emma's earlier path through the storm, following the ghost scent of blood and fear she'd left behind. The dog moved with purpose, occasionally stopping to ensure Tom and Emma followed. They crossed a snowdrift that came up to Tom's waist. He lifted Emma higher, protecting her from the suffocating powder. His arms burned. His lungs felt like they were breathing razors. But he'd carried wounded soldiers through worse. He could carry one small girl through hell, if that's what it took. "Why are you helping us?" Emma's muffled voice came from within the coat. "You don't even know us." Tom's answer came between ragged breaths. "Because I know what it's like when nobody comes. When you're dying and everyone just looks away." "Were you dying once?" "In a way." "Did someone save you?" Tom glanced at Rex, plowing through snow with the determination of a soldier who understood mission completion was survival. "Yeah. Someone saved me." They walked in silence after that, the only sounds the wind's howl and their labored breathing. Tom's mind drifted to Kandahar, to the IED that had shredded his squad. He'd been point man, but Rex had been faster. The dog had detected something, gone rigid in that way military working dogs did when they sensed explosives. Tom had started to call halt when the world exploded. Rex had been thrown 30 feet. Tom had watched the dog tumble through the air, certain he was dead. But when the smoke cleared and the screaming started, Rex had crawled back to him, one ear bleeding, and stayed by Tom's side while they waited for medevac. 4 men died that day. Tom and Rex survived because the dog had sensed danger a half-second earlier than the electronics. The Miller trailer emerged from the blizzard like a ghost. Tom's chest tightened as recognition flooded through him. He knew this place. He'd visited it countless times when Jennifer was young, when his father-in-law was alive, and the trailer housed holiday gatherings and birthday parties. Now it was a scene from a nightmare. The door hung open, slamming in the wind. One window glowed with sickly yellow light. Snow had drifted through the doorway, covering the threshold in white that was stained dark with something that wasn't snow. Tom set Emma down carefully. "Stay with Rex. Right here. Don't come inside until I say." "But Mama, I need to assess the situation first." His voice held the command tone that made Emma nod, despite her fear. Rex positioned himself between Emma and the trailer, a living shield. Tom entered alone. The interior spoke of violence interrupted. An overturned chair, shattered dishes, A hole punched through the drywall. Photos scattered across the floor, a woman and child, smiling in better times. The woman looked familiar in a way that made Tom's stomach twist, but he couldn't place why. He followed the blood trail to the bedroom. She lay crumpled beside the bed, one arm twisted beneath her at an unnatural angle. Blood matted her dark hair, still wet, pooling beneath her head. Her face was swollen, bruised in shades of purple and black. Defensive wounds marked her forearms. Her breathing was shallow, irregular, signs of possible internal bleeding. Tom knelt beside her, his medic training taking over. He checked her pulse, weak but steady. Pupils responsive but uneven. Concussion, possibly severe. Broken fingers on her left hand. Ribs fractured, judging by the way she breathed. He began stabilizing her neck, applying pressure to the head wound. Then she turned slightly, and he saw her face. The world stopped. He knew those features. Knew them because he'd seen them every day for 22 years. Knew them because he'd held her when she was born. Watched her take her first steps. Taught her to ride a bike on this very property. Jennifer, his daughter. The recognition hit him like the IED had. A blast that destroyed everything in an instant. Jennifer at 7, begging him not to leave for deployment. Jennifer at 15, withdrawn and angry after he'd missed her birthday again. Jennifer at 22, her final voicemail. Dad, I need you. I'm in trouble with someone, please. The voicemail he'd deleted because facing her meant facing his failures. And now she was here, beaten nearly to death in his father-in-law's abandoned trailer. Which meant Emma. Tom's hands shook as he pressed gauze to Jennifer's wounds. Emma was his granddaughter. The child he'd just carried through a blizzard was his own blood. The child he'd never known existed because he'd been too broken to answer the phone. Jennifer's eyes fluttered open, unfocused. She saw his face, and confusion flickered through her pain. "Dad?" she whispered, the word barely audible. "Is that—" "No, I'm hallucinating." "It's me, Jenny," Tom said, his voice cracking. "I'm here. I've got you." "Emma," she gasped. "Where's Emma? He'll hurt her. She's safe. She brought me to you." Jennifer's eyes filled with tears. "My baby ran? In the storm? Oh, God, she could have died." "She's alive because she's brave. Like her mother." "I tried to call you," Jennifer whispered. 3 years ago. I was pregnant and scared, and he was starting to. I needed my dad." Tom's throat closed. "I know. I'm sorry. I'm so goddamn sorry." Outside, Emma's voice called, "Sir? Is she alive?" Tom looked at his daughter. This woman he'd abandoned, who'd suffered alone because he'd been too damaged to be there. "She's alive," he called back, "and we're taking her home." He lifted Jennifer as carefully as he'd once lifted wounded Marines, cradling his daughter against his chest. After 15 years of running from his failures, Tom Brennan was finally carrying his family to safety. The journey back was a race against time and a dying woman's failing body. Tom carried Jennifer through the blizzard, her weight barely registering against the adrenaline flooding his system. Emma clung to his coat with one hand, the other buried in Rex's thick fur as the dog guided them through whiteout conditions. Behind them, headlights pierced the storm. A truck engine roared to life. "He's back," Emma whispered, terror making her voice small. "Daddy's back." Tom didn't look behind. Looking back got you killed. He pushed forward, legs burning, lungs screaming, his daughter's shallow breaths the only sound louder than the wind. Rex accelerated, pulling them toward the tree line where the truck couldn't follow. The spotlight from Dalton's vehicle swept across the snow, searching. Tom dropped behind a snowdrift, covering Jennifer's body with his own, pressing Emma down beside him. Rex lay flat, ears back, utterly still. A ghost in the storm. "Jenny!" Dalton's voice cut through the blizzard, amplified by a megaphone. "Emma, get back here! This is your last warning!" Tom felt Emma trembling against him. He pulled her closer, one hand over her mouth to stifle any sound. Not from fear she'd betray them, but because terror sometimes made people scream involuntarily. He knew. He'd heard it enough in combat. The spotlight swept past them, inches away. Tom could hear Dalton's voice, slurred now with alcohol and rage. "You can't hide from me. I know every inch of these woods. You're mine, Jenny. Mine!" The possessive madness in those words made Tom's jaw clench. This wasn't love. This was ownership. This was what turned marriage into a cage. After 5 agonizing minutes, the truck reversed, tires spinning in snow. Dalton was going to circle around, try to cut them off at Tom's cabin. They had maybe 10 minutes head start. Tom rose, lifting Jennifer again. "Move! Now!" They ran, or what passed for running in waist-deep snow. Rex broke trail, his military training evident in how he chose the path of least resistance, finding firm ground beneath the powder. Emma stumbled twice, and twice Tom caught her with his free hand, refusing to let anyone fall. Jennifer drifted in and out of consciousness, murmuring fragments. "Emma, run! Don't let him. My baby." Each word was a knife in Tom's chest. His daughter had been living this nightmare while he drank himself numb 15 miles away. The cabin appeared through the trees like salvation. Tom kicked the door open, rushed Jennifer to his bed, the only bed. Emma collapsed by the fire, exhausted beyond speech. Rex positioned himself at the door, alert, watching. Tom's combat medic training took over completely. He'd treated worse injuries in worse conditions, but never on his own child. His hands shook as he cleaned wounds with whiskey, applied butterfly bandages to the gash above Jennifer's eye, splinted her broken fingers with kindling and medical tape. Her ribs concerned him most, the irregular breathing, the way she winced with each shallow inhalation. Possible pneumothorax, maybe internal bleeding. She needed a hospital, but the storm made that impossible. The roads were impassable, and calling for help meant calling the sheriff's office, where Dalton worked. Jennifer's eyes fluttered open as Tom wrapped her ribs. She focused on his face, and something between pain and wonder crossed her features. "You came," she whispered. "After all these years, you came. I should have come 3 years ago." Tom's voice was raw. "When you called, when you needed me, I was pregnant, scared. Dalton was starting to get angry over little things." Jennifer coughed, winced. "I wanted to come home, but I didn't know where home was anymore. You'd stopped answering." "I was drowning," Tom said quietly, bandaging her head. "After your mom died, after the war, I was drowning, and I thought if I pulled you down with me, I'd kill you too. So you just let me go? I thought I was protecting you. From me. From my damage." He met her eyes. "I was wrong, and you paid the price for my cowardice." Emma's small voice interrupted. "Mama, that man, he's your daddy?" Jennifer nodded weakly. "Yes, baby. He's my father. Your grandpa." Emma processed this, her young mind working through connections. "So he's Family? Real family? Real family, Jennifer confirmed. Emma turned to Tom, her face serious beyond her 7 years. Why didn't you come before? When Daddy hurt Mama the first time? Or the second? Or the 100th? The question was a bullet. Tom knelt to Emma's level. Because I didn't know. Because your Mama was trying to protect me from the truth, and I was too broken to see past my own pain to ask. He took her small hands in his scarred ones. But I'm here now, and I'm not leaving. Ever again. Promise? Emma's voice cracked. On my life. Emma threw her arms around his neck, and Tom held his granddaughter for the first time, feeling something frozen inside him begin to thaw. Rex padded over, pressing his body against both of them, and suddenly Tom was surrounded by family he'd believed lost forever. Jennifer watched from the bed, tears streaming. I wanted to hate you, she whispered. For so long I wanted to hate you. You should, Tom said. I deserve it. But Emma needed saving. And I knew if anyone could fight through a blizzard to reach us, it would be the Marine who fought through everything else. She coughed again, harder. Even his own fear. Tom returned to her side, checking her vitals. Pulse steady but weak. Color improving slightly with warmth. Tell me about him. About Dalton. What am I dealing with? Jennifer's face hardened. He's a deputy. Sheriff Morrison's golden boy. Everyone thinks he's a hero. The cop who volunteers at schools, coaches Little League, goes to church every Sunday. Her voice turned bitter. At home, he's different. The first time he hit me, Emma was 6 months old. I threatened to leave. He put his service weapon on the table and said, You'll never take my daughter. He's not Emma's biological father, Jennifer continued, seeing Tom's confusion. I had a brief relationship during a separation, got pregnant, went back to Dalton because I had nowhere else to go. She laughed hollowly. He forgave me, said he'd raise Emma as his own, but he uses her paternity as leverage. I could tell everyone the truth, he says, ruin her life, take her from you. So I stayed. Tom's hands clenched into fists. How long? 5 years of violence, 7 years of control before that. Jennifer met his eyes. I tried to leave twice. He found me both times. The sheriff brought me back, said I was being hysterical, that Dalton was just worried about me. Morrison knows? They all know, the whole department, but Dalton's one of them. Jennifer's voice dropped. Who do you call when the police are the problem? The question hung in the air, unanswerable. Outside, an engine growled. Headlights swept across the cabin windows. Rex's hackles rose. A low, warning growl rumbled from his chest. He's here, Emma whispered. Tom stood, moving to the window. 3 sheriff's vehicles circled the cabin, their lights painting the snow in alternating red and blue. 5 men climbed out, Dalton in the lead, with Sheriff Ben Morrison right behind him. Tom's radio crackled to life, Morrison's voice, official and cold. Tom Brennan, this is Sheriff Morrison. You're harboring a woman and child reported as endangered. Send them out, and we can resolve this peacefully. Tom picked up the radio. Ben, the only danger these 2 faced was the man you're standing next to. That's not what Deputy Clark reports. Says his wife has mental health issues, ran off with their child in a blizzard. We're here for a welfare check. A welfare check? Tom's voice hardened. She's got a fractured skull, broken ribs, and defensive wounds on both arms. That's not mental illness. That's attempted murder. Silence on the radio. Then, Tom, I've known Dalton 5 years. He's a good officer. Whatever happened between man and wife, she's my daughter, Ben." Tom's words cut through the static. "Jennifer Brennan? You remember her? Used to babysit your grandson?" Another pause, longer this time. When Morrison spoke again, his voice had changed. "Jennifer's your daughter? Has been for 32 years. And that little girl Dalton's pretending to care about? She's my granddaughter. She ran 2 miles through a killing blizzard because her mother was dying. Think about what kind of terror makes a 7-year-old do that." Through the window, Tom saw Morrison and Dalton arguing. Dalton gesticulated wildly. Morrison shook his head. The other deputies stood back, uncertain. The radio crackled again, but this time it was Dalton's voice. "You don't know what she's like, Brennan. She's manipulative, always playing victim. I've given her everything." "You gave her 5 years of beatings," Tom interrupted. "I've seen the injuries. I've treated combat wounds that looked better. She provokes me. If she'd just listen, just do what I say." "So you hit her?" Tom's voice could have cut steel. "That's your solution? You took an oath to protect and serve, and you're using it to justify abuse?" "You abandoned her!" Dalton screamed, all pretense of control gone. "Where were you when she needed a father? Where were you when she was alone and scared? I was there. I took her in. She's mine because you threw her away." The words landed like punches because they were true. Tom had abandoned Jennifer, had failed her completely. But Dalton had weaponized that failure, had used her vulnerability to trap her. "You're right," Tom said quietly into the radio. "I failed her. I wasn't there when I should have been, but I'm here now, and you'll have to kill me to take her back." Emma gasped. Jennifer tried to sit up, crying out in pain. Rex positioned himself at Tom's side, ready. Morrison's voice returned. "Tom, don't make threats you can't take back." "It's not a threat, Ben. It's a fact. I've lost enough family. I'm not losing them again." The standoff settled into tense silence. Snow continued falling, burying everything in white. Tom checked his rifle, loaded, safety off. He wasn't a young man anymore, and his leg hurt like hell, but he'd held positions against worse odds in Afghanistan. Behind him, Jennifer whispered, "Dad, you can't fight them all." "Watch me." Emma crawled to the window beside Rex, peering out at the lights. "How many are there?" "5, Tom said. "But only one that matters." The cabin door rattled, someone testing the lock. Tom raised the rifle, aiming at center mass of whoever came through. Rex's growl deepened, his entire body coiled to spring. Then a different voice came through the radio, female, shaky. "Mr. Brennan, this is Dr. Helen Foster. I'm coming to the cabin. Please don't shoot." Tom watched an elderly woman climb from her car, medical bag in hand. She walked through the snow toward his porch, ignoring the deputy's shouts to stop. Morrison keyed his radio. "Helen, what the hell are you doing?" Dr. Foster didn't answer him. She knocked on Tom's door. "Mr. Brennan, I've treated Jennifer's injuries 47 times in 5 years. 47 documented visits. I stayed silent because I was afraid. Of Dalton, of losing my practice, of making waves." Her voice broke. "I took an oath to do no harm. My silence did the most harm of all. Please, let me help her now." Tom opened the door a crack. Dr. Foster met his eyes. Hers red-rimmed, filled with shame and determination in equal measure. "Do you have the medical records?" Tom asked. "In my car. All 47 visits, dates, injuries, photographs, everything." Tom opened the door wider. Dr. Foster entered, immediately going to Jennifer's bedside. She examined the wounds with professional efficiency. her face growing harder with each injury catalogued. "This is consistent with prolonged domestic violence," she said, loud enough for the radio to pick up. "Defensive wounds, repeated fractures, evidence of strangulation attempts. Sheriff Morrison, if you allow that man to take her back, you're signing her death warrant." Morrison's voice came back strained. "Helen, you're interfering with official business." "No, Ben. I'm finally doing my job. 30 years too late, but I'm doing it." Another car arrived. A small woman in a heavy shawl climbed out, carrying something. Maria Santos, Tom's nearest neighbor, approached the deputies with quiet dignity. "Sheriff Morrison," she said in accented English, "I have recordings, 5 years of recordings from my home, of screaming, of violence, of that man," she pointed at Dalton, "hurting that woman." Morrison's face showed the first cracks of doubt. "Maria, why didn't you report this before?" "I tried. You said was not my business. Said I should mind my own affairs." Maria's voice hardened. "I am immigrant. You remind me often, so I stay quiet. But no more. I will not be silent when woman dies." Dalton lunged for Maria, and 3 things happened simultaneously. Morrison grabbed Dalton's arm, stopping him. Rex launched himself through the cabin door, crossing 20 feet in 3 seconds, and a church van pulled up, disgorging Reverend David Marshall and a dozen parishioners. Marshall's voice boomed across the snow. "Sheriff, what's happening here is an abomination. I've counseled Jennifer Clark for 2 years, told her to submit, to forgive, to try harder." His voice broke. "I was wrong, dangerously, sinfully wrong. The blood on her hands is on mine too, but it ends tonight." The crowd grew. More cars arrived. Neighbors, church members, people Tom barely knew. They formed a human wall between Dalton and the cabin, silent witnesses refusing to look away anymore. Morrison stood in the center of the circle, his authority crumbling. Dalton screamed at him to do something, to arrest everyone, to take back his family, but Morrison's hand had moved to his own handcuffs. Inside the cabin, Jennifer wept in Emma's arms while Dr. Foster worked. Tom stood at the window, Rex by his side, watching the community finally refuse to be complicit. The siege wasn't over, but for the first time in 5 years, Jennifer Brennan wasn't fighting alone. The standoff held for 20 agonizing minutes, the air thick with the kind of tension that precedes violence. Tom remained at the window, rifle ready but not aimed, while Rex paced the door with the controlled aggression of a weapon waiting to be unleashed. Outside, Dalton Clark's composure disintegrated by degrees. "This is your last chance, Brennan." Dalton's voice cracked through the megaphone. "Send them out or I'm coming in." Sheriff Morrison stepped forward, placing a hand on Dalton's shoulder. "Stand down, deputy. We're not storming a citizen's home without cause." "She's my wife. That's cause." "She's also a woman with documented injuries." Morrison's voice carried doubt now, eroded by Dr. Foster's testimony and Maria's recordings. "We need to slow this down, figure out what really—" Dalton shoved Morrison aside. "You're all against me, my own department." He pulled his service weapon. The crowd gasped, stepping back. Morrison's hand flew to his own holster. "Dalton, weapon down! Now!" But Dalton wasn't aiming at anyone yet. He was spiraling, the careful facade of the respectable deputy crumbling like wet paper. "I gave her everything. A home, a life, protection. And this is how she repays me? Running to him." He pointed the gun toward the cabin. "To the man who abandoned her." Inside, Jennifer tried to stand, but pain drove her back down. "He's going to do something crazy," she gasped. "When he gets like this, when people see who he really is?" Emma clutched Rex's fur, her small body trembling. "Is Grandpa going to be okay?" Tom didn't answer. He was calculating angles, distances, his combat training mapping the battlefield. 5 armed deputies, 1 sheriff, 1 unstable subject with a weapon, civilians in the crossfire. His daughter and granddaughter behind him, no good options. Rex sensed the escalation. The dog moved to the door, body low, teeth bared. Tom had seen this stance before, in Afghanistan, seconds before Rex neutralized an enemy combatant. The dog knew what was coming. "Dalton, I'm ordering you to holster your weapon." Morrison's voice held command authority now, but Dalton was beyond obeying orders. "I'm going in there, Ben. You can either back me or get out of my way." Morrison drew his own weapon, but didn't aim it. "I can't let you do that, son." "Son?" Dalton laughed, a sound stripped of sanity. "You called me son for 5 years while I bled for this department. But the moment that broken-down Marine shows up with his sob story, you turn on me?" "The moment I saw evidence of what you've been doing," Morrison corrected quietly. 47 medical visits, Dalton. 5 years of documented abuse. How did I miss that?" "Because you wanted to," Dalton screamed. "Because it's easier to believe everything's fine than to admit one of your own is—" He couldn't finish. Couldn't say the word that would make it real. Monster. That was the word hovering in the frozen air between them. Reverend Marshall stepped forward, hands raised in supplication. "Dalton, I counseled you and Jennifer. I told her to submit, to forgive. I was wrong, but violence now will only—" "Shut up." Dalton swung the gun toward Marshall. "You think your prayers mean anything? You think God cares about any of this?" The gun was moving erratically now, pointing at different people in rapid succession. Deputy James Carter, the youngest of the group, spoke up. "Dalton, man, I've looked up to you for 2 years. You taught me how to be a cop. But this isn't you." "You don't know me," Dalton snarled. "None of you know me." "Then help us understand," Carter said, his voice gentle despite the weapon pointed near him. "Talk to us. Tell us what happened." For a moment something flickered across Dalton's face, a glimpse of the human beneath the rage. "What happened is I became my father," he said, voice breaking. "I swore I'd never. My old man used to beat my mother. Beat me. I watched him drink himself into a rage every night." Tears mixed with snow on his face. "She killed herself when I was 14. Hanged herself in our garage. And I swore on her grave, I'd be different." The confession hung in the air, terrible and true. "But you're not different." Tom's voice cut through from the cabin. "You just found better excuses." Dalton's face twisted. "You don't get to judge me. You abandoned your daughter, left her alone and scared, and I was there. I picked up your pieces." "And then you broke her worse than I ever did," Tom replied, his voice carrying the weight of undeniable truth. "At least I left her intact. You shattered her." "I loved her." "Love doesn't leave bruises." The simple statement broke something in Dalton. He screamed, a sound of pure anguish, and charged the cabin door. Tom stepped back, bringing the rifle up. "Rex, protect." The German shepherd exploded through the door in a blur of dark fur and bared teeth. 70 pounds of trained military aggression launched at Dalton with the precision of a guided missile. Rex had been taught to neutralize threats without killing, to incapacitate, not execute. His jaws closed around Dalton's gun hand, his weight slamming Dalton into the snow. The service weapon fired once, the bullet going wild into the trees. Then Rex had Dalton pinned, teeth locked on his wrist, growling a warning that promised worse if Dalton moved. "Shoot the dog!" Dalton screamed at the other deputies. "Shoot it!" None of them moved. They stood frozen, watching a military working dog do what they should have done years ago: stop a predator. Morrison approached slowly, his own weapon holstered now. "Rex, easy boy. Good boy. Hold him." He bent to retrieve Dalton's gun, tucked it in his own belt, then produced handcuffs. "Tom, call him off. We've got him." Tom appeared in the doorway. "Rex, release! Heel!" Rex obeyed instantly, backing away from Dalton but remaining alert, ready to engage again if needed. The dog had drawn blood. Dalton's wrist bore puncture marks, but hadn't mauled. Controlled force. Exactly as trained. Morrison cuffed Dalton face down in the snow. "Dalton Clark, you're under arrest for assault with a deadly weapon, domestic violence, and about 6 other charges I'll think of on the way to county." "Ben, please, don't." Morrison's voice was ice. "Don't say another word." But before Morrison could haul Dalton to his feet, the cabin door opened wider, and Emma stepped out. "Emma, no!" Jennifer's voice, weak but frantic, came from inside. But Emma walked through the snow in her borrowed socks, moving toward the man who'd terrorized her entire life. Tom moved to intercept, but she waved him off with a gesture so adult it froze him in place. She stood over Dalton, this tiny 7-year-old girl looking down at the man who'd made her mother bleed, and when she spoke, her voice carried across the silent snow with perfect clarity. "You're not my daddy anymore." Dalton's face crumpled. "Baby, I love you. I'm sorry, sometimes I can't control." "Love doesn't hurt," Emma interrupted, echoing Tom's words. "Mr. Tom and Rex love us, and they don't hurt us. They save us." She paused, then added with devastating simplicity, "You're not my daddy. Grandpa Tom is my family now." The rejection broke Dalton completely. He began to sob, great heaving sounds that shook his body. Not manipulative tears, but genuine anguish. The sound of a man confronting the ruins of what he'd become. Morrison hauled him upright. As he did, something seemed to break in the sheriff, too. His hands shook on the cuffs. His face, weathered by 30 years of law enforcement, cracked with something that looked like recognition. "I know what you're feeling, Dalton," Morrison said quietly. "That moment when you realize you've destroyed everything you claim to love." Dalton stared at him through tears. "Ben?" Morrison looked past Dalton to the crowd, to Tom, to little Emma standing in the snow like an avenging angel in borrowed socks. When he spoke, his voice carried to everyone. 22 years ago, my daughter came to me. She was 19, married to her high school sweetheart. She had a black eye." Morrison's voice cracked. "She said her husband had hit her, asked if she could come home." The crowd went silent. Even Dalton stopped struggling. "I told her no," Morrison continued. "Told her marriage was hard work. Told her to go home, try harder, make it work. She left crying." He paused, visibly gathering himself. 3 months later, I got a call from the hospital. My daughter had taken a bottle of sleeping pills, left a note that said, "Daddy, I needed you to save me. You chose him instead." Gasps rippled through the crowd. Morrison's eyes were wet now, his professional mask completely gone. "She died at 2:47 a.m. on a Tuesday. I held her hand while she slipped away, and the last thing she said was, 'I'm sorry, Daddy. I tried to be strong enough.'" Morrison looked directly at Dalton. She was strong enough, I wasn't. He turned to the crowd, to his deputies, to the town that had trusted him with their safety. For 22 years, I've worn this badge and told myself Sarah's death wasn't my fault, that she should have tried harder, that her husband was a good man who made one mistake. His voice hardened. I lied. To myself, to this town, to every woman who came to me with bruises and fear in her eyes. I chose comfort over courage, chose the status quo over doing what was right. Morrison removed his sheriff's star, held it in his palm like it weighed 1,000 pounds. I'm done lying. I'm done choosing wrong. He looked at Jennifer in the cabin doorway, supported by Tom. Ma'am, I failed you like I failed my Sarah, but I swear on my daughter's grave I won't fail another one. He turned to his deputies. Anyone who has a problem arresting one of our own can turn in their badge right now. Anyone who thinks a woman deserves what she gets can find employment elsewhere. Because starting tonight, this department protects victims, even from ourselves. The deputies stood silent. Then Carter stepped forward. Sir, I'm with you. One by one, the others nodded. Not enthusiastic agreement, but the slow, reluctant acknowledgement of men confronting their own complicity. Maria Santos approached Morrison, placed her recordings in his hand. Is enough evidence? More than enough, Morrison confirmed. Dr. Foster added her medical files to the pile. Everything's documented. Every visit, every injury, every time I should have reported and didn't. Reverend Marshall joined them. I have counseling notes. 2 years of telling her to submit. All of it. He couldn't finish. All of it on me. The weight of collective guilt settled over the scene like the snow, cold, heavy, undeniable. Dalton watched his world collapse, saw the entire town bearing witness to his sins. I didn't mean to become this, he whispered. I swore I'd be different from him. But you weren't, Morrison said without malice, just tired truth. And now you face the consequences. As Morrison led Dalton to the patrol car, Dalton looked back one last time at Emma. I'm sorry, he said. For all of it. I'm so sorry. Emma didn't respond. She simply took Tom's hand and walked back to the cabin, to her mother, to her grandfather, who'd finally shown up when it mattered most. Inside, Jennifer wept as Tom helped her back to bed. It's really over? The violence is over, Tom said carefully. The healing, that takes longer. Doctor. Foster checked Jennifer's vitals, administering pain medication from her bag. You'll need hospital care as soon as the road's clear. But you're stable for now. Emma climbed onto the bed beside her mother, careful of her injuries. Rex padded over, resting his massive head on the bed's edge. The 4 of them, 3 generations and a dog, formed a circle of safety in the small cabin. Outside, the crowd began to disperse. Morrison drove away with Dalton secured in the back seat, the taillights disappearing into the still falling snow. Reverend Marshall gathered his parishioners, leading them in a prayer for Jennifer, for Emma, for all the women they'd failed. Deputy Carter approached the cabin, knocked gently. Tom opened the door a crack. Sir, I know this doesn't mean much, but I'm sorry, I saw signs. I should have done something. You're doing something now, Tom said. That's what matters. For what it's worth, you and your dog, you did what we should have done years ago. Protect the innocent. Carter glanced at Rex, who watched him with alert, assessing eyes. That's a hell of a dog you've got there. Best partner I ever had, Tom agreed. Saved my life more times than I can count. Tonight was just one more." Carter nodded and returned to his vehicle. Slowly, the remaining cars pulled away, leaving only tire tracks in the fresh snow. Tom closed the door and leaned against it, suddenly exhausted. The adrenaline was fading, leaving him aware of every ache in his battered body. His leg throbbed where the shrapnel dug in. His arms burned from carrying Jennifer through the blizzard. His hands shook with delayed shock. But when he looked at the bed, at his daughter alive, his granddaughter safe, Rex standing guard, he felt something he hadn't felt in 15 years. Purpose. The storm outside was dying down. Through the window he could see stars beginning to peek through the clouds. A break in the weather, a break in the darkness. Not an ending, but a beginning. Emma's small voice broke the silence. "Grandpa Tom?" "Yeah, sweetheart? Are we really safe now?" Tom crossed to the bed, knelt beside it so he was at her eye level. "Yes, you're safe. Promise? On my life. On Rex's life. On everything I am." He took her small hand in his scarred one. "Nobody's going to hurt you or your mama again. Not while I'm breathing." Emma studied his face with the serious intensity of a child who'd learned too young that adults lie. But whatever she saw in Tom's eyes satisfied her. She nodded and curled against her mother, finally allowing herself to sleep. Jennifer reached out, touched Tom's face with her unbroken hand. "Dad, I'm here. Don't leave again. Please, not ever again." Tom's throat closed, but he forced the words out. "Never. I'm staying. For as long as you need me." "Forever, then," Jennifer whispered, her eyes closing. "We'll need you forever." Tom stayed kneeling by the bed, his hand in hers while Rex lay at his feet, and the storm finally began to clear. But neither Tom nor Jennifer knew that in 6 hours the story would take its darkest turn yet. That Dalton would escape during transport. That the violence they thought was over had only paused to gather strength. For now, though, they had this moment, this fragile peace, this sliver of hope in a long, dark night. They had each other. And sometimes that's enough to keep you breathing until dawn. Dawn broke over Montana with the peculiar brightness that follows blizzards. The world scrubbed clean, everything buried under 3 feet of pristine snow. Tom stood at the cabin window, coffee cooling in his hands, watching the sun paint the peaks gold. Behind him, Jennifer slept fitfully, pain medication keeping the worst at bay. Emma was curled against her mother, one small hand fisted in Rex's thick fur where the dog lay beside the bed. For the first time in 3 years, Tom felt the weight lifting. Not gone. It would never be fully gone, but lighter, bearable. He had a daughter again, a granddaughter, a reason to keep his hands steady and his head clear. The phone rang at 6:47 a.m. Sheriff Morrison's voice came through tight and strained. "Tom, we have a situation." Tom's coffee cup froze halfway to his lips. "What kind of situation?" "Dalton escaped during transport. Deputy bringing him to county lockup stopped for gas. Dalton claimed chest pains, and when the deputy called for medical, Dalton overpowered him, took his weapon, stole the patrol car." The world tilted. "When?" 20 minutes ago. "Tom, he's armed, unstable, and he knows exactly where you are." Tom set the coffee down carefully, keeping his voice level so he wouldn't wake Jennifer and Emma. "How far out?" "If he's driving like he's got nothing to lose, 10 minutes, maybe less. Send back up. Roads are still impassable. County snowplows won't reach your area for hours. Tom, I'm so sorry. We should have had 2 deputies on transport, should have. Save it. Tom was already moving, checking his rifle, counting rounds. Just get here as fast as you can. He hung up and turned to find Jennifer awake, her one good eye wide with terror. She'd heard enough. No, she whispered. No, he can't. Tom, he'll kill you. He'll kill all of us. Not if I stop him first. You're one man with a bum leg and a rifle. He's a trained deputy with nothing left to lose. I'm a Marine with everything left to protect. Tom pulled on his boots, his coat. Jenny, take Emma to the basement. There's a root cellar with a reinforced door. Lock yourselves in. Don't come out until you hear my voice or Morrison's. Dad? Now, Jennifer, we don't have time. Emma woke to her mother's urgent whispers, confusion giving way to fear as she processed what was happening. He's coming back? Yeah, sweetheart. Tom knelt beside her, gentle despite the urgency. But I need you to be brave one more time. Can you do that? Emma nodded, tears already streaming. I don't want you to die, Grandpa. I don't plan to. Tom kissed her forehead. Rex and we've survived worse than one angry man, trust me. But as he said it, he wasn't sure he believed it. Dalton had nothing to lose now. No reputation to protect, no career to salvage, no future to consider. Men with nothing to lose were the most dangerous kind. Tom helped Jennifer down the basement stairs, Emma clinging to her mother despite Jennifer's broken ribs, making each step agony. The root cellar was small, cold, stocked with emergency supplies from Tom's prepper days. He showed them the battery-powered radio, the blankets, the bottled water. If something happens to me, Tom said quietly to Jennifer, Morrison knows you're here. He'll come. Maria Santos will come. You won't be alone anymore. Jennifer grabbed his hand with her uninjured one. You come back. You hear me? You don't get to show up after 15 years just to die protecting us. We need more than one night, Dad. We need years. I'll do my best. Your best better be enough. Tom locked the cellar door from the outside, pocketing the key. Then he returned upstairs to prepare for war. Rex was already at the door, ears forward, body rigid. The dog knew. Military working dogs always knew when violence was coming. This is it, boy, Tom said, running his hand over Rex's scarred head. One more mission, one more fight. Then we're done. We get to be a family, watch Emma grow up, teach her to fish, all that normal stuff. He pressed his forehead to Rex's. But first, we hold the line. Rex's tail wagged once. Acknowledgement, acceptance, readiness. Tom positioned himself behind an overturned table near the window, rifle braced and ready. Rex took position by the door, a furry tripwire waiting to be triggered. The cabin was defensible. Thick log walls, limited entry points, good sight lines. Tom had chosen it partly for that reason, even in his isolation. Old habits from a life that never quite let him go. The minutes crawled. 7 minutes. 8. 9. Then the sound of an engine, pushed too hard, roaring up the snow-covered drive. The stolen patrol car crashed through Tom's fence, sending boards flying. It skidded to a stop 20 yards from the cabin, driver's door flying open. Dalton emerged, service weapon in one hand, half a bottle of whiskey in the other. His face was a mask of rage and desperation, his deputy's uniform torn and stained. "Brennan!" His voice cracked across the snow. "Send them out! Last chance!" Tom didn't answer. Silence was tactical. Let Dalton wonder, let him guess. let his imagination work against him. "I know they're in there. I know you think you've won." Dalton took a long pull from the bottle, swaying slightly. Drunk and armed, the worst combination. "But she's mine! Emma's mine! You can't have them!" Still Tom waited. His breathing was slow, controlled, heart rate steady. The rifle's crosshairs centered on Dalton's chest. Not a killing shot. Tom had promised Jennifer, but enough to stop him. "Fine!" Dalton screamed. "You want to be a hero? Let's see how heroic you are." He fired 3 rounds into the cabin, 2 through the window, 1 through the door. Glass shattered, wood splintered. Tom ducked, but held position. Rex didn't move, his training overriding every instinct to flee gunfire. "That's for every time you failed her." Another shot. "For abandoning your daughter." Another. "For making her weak enough to need someone like me." The shots were wild, fired from rage rather than precision, but wild shots could still kill. Tom adjusted his aim, preparing to return fire, when Dalton did something unexpected. He started toward the cabin, firing as he walked. Not a tactical advance, but a suicide charge. A man beyond reason, beyond hope, beyond everything except the need to take someone else down with him. "Rex, hold position," Tom commanded, but the dog was trembling, every muscle coiled tight. Dalton reached the porch steps. "Come out, Jennifer. Bring Emma. We're going home. We're going to be a family again." The delusion in his voice was almost worse than the rage. He genuinely believed he could put this back together, that love and possession were the same thing, that you could beat someone into submission and call it marriage. "Dalton, stop," Tom's voice cut through. "There's no coming back from this. Put the weapon down. Let me help you." "Help me?" Dalton laughed, a sound stripped of sanity. "Like you helped your daughter? Where were you, Brennan? Where were you when she needed a father? I was there. I raised that kid. I fed her, clothed her, kept a roof over her head." "And beat her mother unconscious," Tom finished coldly. "Those things don't cancel out. She provoked me. If she'd just listen, just do what I say, I wouldn't have to—" Dalton stopped, seemed to hear himself. For a moment, something like horror crossed his face. I never meant to become—" "Your father," Tom supplied. "I know, but you did anyway." The truth broke something final in Dalton. He raised the weapon, not at Tom, but toward the cabin door where he knew, or thought, Jennifer and Emma hid. "If I can't have them, nobody can." Time slowed. Tom saw the decision in Dalton's eyes, saw the finger tightening on the trigger, saw where the barrel was pointing. Low, toward the basement door, toward where a man might guess a frightened woman would hide with her child. Tom had 2 choices: take the shot and possibly kill Dalton, breaking his promise to Jennifer, or "Rex, protect Emma!" The German Shepherd exploded through the cabin door like a missile. 70 pounds of trained aggression launched across the porch in 3 powerful bounds. Dalton swung the gun toward the dog, fired. The shot caught Rex mid-leap. The bullet punched through his shoulder, but momentum carried the dog forward. Rex's body slammed into Dalton, driving him backward off the porch. They hit the snow in a tangle of limbs and fur, the gun flying from Dalton's hand. But Rex wasn't attacking anymore. He was lying still, blood spreading across the white snow in a crimson pool that grew with each heartbeat. "No!" Tom was out the door, rifle forgotten, sliding down beside his dog. "Rex, no, boy, no." The dog's eyes found Tom's face. His tail twitched once. Recognition, love, loyalty to the very end. But the light in those eyes was fading. Dalton scrambled for his weapon, found it, raised it toward Tom's unprotected back. Emma's scream cut through the air. "Grandpa! Look out!" Tom spun, putting his body between Dalton and the cabin, knowing he was too slow, too far, too... The shot never came. Morrison's cruiser crashed through the remaining fence, the sheriff leaping out with his own weapon drawn. "Dalton Clark! Drop it! Now!" But Dalton was beyond listening. He turned the gun toward Morrison, toward the cabin, toward himself, his hand shaking, his face crumbling. "I loved her," he whispered. "I did." "Why wasn't that enough?" "Because love isn't enough," Morrison said gently, weapon still trained on him. "Not when it's twisted into something else. Dalton, please, put it down. Let us help you." For a long moment, Dalton's finger hovered on the trigger. Then his hand opened, and the gun fell into the snow. He collapsed to his knees, sobbing. "I killed the dog. Oh, God, I killed the dog." Deputy Carter was there then, cuffing Dalton properly this time, while Morrison kicked away every weapon. But Tom wasn't watching. He was cradling Rex's head in his lap, blood soaking through his jeans, his hands slippery with it. "Stay with me, boy," Tom begged. "You've saved me so many times. Let me save you, please. Rex, please." Dr. Foster was running from her car, medical bag in hand. She dropped beside them, hands already moving, assessing. "Bullet punctured the lung. He's losing blood too fast. Tom, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry." "There has to be something. If we were at a vet hospital, maybe. But here, in the snow with these injuries..." She met his eyes, hers brimming with tears. "Tom, he doesn't have long. Minutes, maybe." Emma appeared at the cabin door, Jennifer supporting herself against the frame. They saw Rex lying in the snow, saw the blood, saw Tom's anguished face. Emma ran. Jennifer couldn't stop her. The little girl threw herself down beside Rex, her small hands gentle on his bloodied fur. "Rex? No. Please don't die. Please." The dog's eyes shifted to Emma. His tail twitched again, that universal dog gesture. "I love you. I'd do it again. You're worth it." "He saved me," Emma sobbed. "He saved Mama and Grandpa and me." "That's what heroes do," Tom said, his voice breaking on every word. He'd held dying men in combat, had felt life slip away under his hands dozens of times. But this was Rex, his partner, his brother, the dog who'd pulled him back from the edge of despair again and again. Jennifer made it to them, sinking into the snow despite her injuries. She placed her hand on Rex's side, feeling the labored breathing, the slowing heartbeat. "Thank you," she whispered to the dog. "Thank you for saving my dad. Thank you for saving us." Morrison and Carter stood back, hats off, heads bowed. Maria Santos emerged from her car, crossing herself. Reverend Marshall, who'd followed Morrison's cruiser, began murmuring a prayer for an animal, for a soldier, for a life given in service. Rex's breathing changed, becoming shallow, erratic. Tom leaned close, his face nearly touching the dog's muzzle. "You're the best partner I ever had," Tom whispered. "You saved me in Kandahar. You saved me when Sarah died. You saved me tonight." Tears streamed down his weathered face. "You taught me that love doesn't require perfection, just presence, just showing up when it matters." Rex's eyes held Tom's one last time. In them, Tom saw no fear, no regret, just the simple, absolute love that only a dog can give, unconditional, unearning, unwavering. The dog's tail wagged once more. Then the light went out. Rex's chest stopped moving. His body went still, relaxed, at peace. Emma's wail cut through the morning like a knife. "No! Rex, come back! Please come back!" Tom gathered them both, his granddaughter, his dying partner, and held them while they sobbed. Jennifer's hand found his shoulder, her own tears falling into the snow that was stained red with the blood of a hero. The sun climbed higher, indifferent to the tragedy below. The snow sparkled, beautiful and cruel. And in a small clearing in Montana, 3 generations mourned a German shepherd who'd proven that courage isn't the absence of fear. It's loving someone enough to stand between them and death, even when death wins. The burial took place 3 hours later, after the ambulance had taken Jennifer to the hospital and Dalton had been transferred under heavy guard to county lockup. Tom dug the grave himself behind the cabin, his movements mechanical, grief hollowing him out from the inside. Emma stood beside him, still wearing her borrowed clothes, watching each shovelful of frozen earth with the solemn intensity of a child learning that death is permanent. Sheriff Morrison and Deputy Carter remained nearby, ostensibly for security, but really because neither man could bring themselves to leave. Tom laid Rex in the grave with his own hands, positioning the dog carefully, arranging his paws, closing those loyal eyes one final time. He removed his own military jacket, the one with his patches still sewn on, and wrapped it around Rex like a burial shroud. "I'm putting him next to Sarah," Tom said quietly, gesturing to the grave marker 10 feet away. "Next to my wife." Emma looked at the headstone, reading the inscription, "Sarah Brennan, beloved wife and mother, 1965 to 2023. Then she noticed the smaller stone beside it, weathered and old. Rebecca Ann Brennan, 1987 to 1990, our angel. "Who's Rebecca?" Emma asked. Tom's hands stilled on the shovel. He looked at the small grave, at the name he avoided looking at for 35 years. When he spoke, his voice was raw. "Your aunt. Jennifer's older sister." Emma's eyes widened. "Mama had a sister?" "Yeah, she did." Tom sat heavily on a snow-covered log, suddenly unable to stand. "Rebecca was my first daughter, born in 1987. She had your mama's eyes and your great-grandmother's smile." His voice caught. "She died 3 years later. Leukemia. I was deployed when she got sick. Command couldn't get me emergency leave in time. Sarah had to watch our baby die alone." Morrison, who'd been listening, stepped closer. "Tom, I didn't know." "Nobody knew. Sarah and I, we buried Rebecca and tried to move forward. Jennifer was born a year later." Tom stared at his scarred hands. "But I couldn't attach. Every time I looked at Jenny, I saw Rebecca, saw death waiting. So I deployed, over and over. Ran from my own daughter because I was terrified I'd lose her too." Understanding dawned on Emma's young face. "You were scared." "Terrified," Tom admitted. "Then Sarah got cancer, and I watched another person I loved die slowly, painfully, while I stood by, helpless. After she was gone, when Jennifer called needing help," he closed his eyes. "I couldn't answer. Couldn't risk opening my heart just to have it ripped out again. "So, you left Mama alone," Emma said, not accusing, just processing. "I did. Convinced myself it was safer for both of us. That distance was protection." Tom looked at the two graves, at the dog wrapped in his jacket. "Rex taught me different. He'd been through hell in Afghanistan, watched his handler die before being reassigned to me, got blown up saving my life, had every reason to be afraid, but he stayed anyway, loved anyway, protected anyway." "Even when it hurt," Emma whispered. "Especially when it hurt." Tom stood, resumed digging. "That's what love is. Showing up even when you're scared. Rex showed me that, and last night, he gave me the chance to finally do it right." They buried Rex in silence after that, each shovelful of earth feeling like goodbye. Tom marked the grave with a stone, carved with his knife. Rex, military working dog, hero, friend. Saved lives until the end. Emma placed her carved wooden horse beside the marker, the one Tom had whittled for her that first night. "So he's not alone," she explained. By noon, Whitetail County had transformed. The near tragedy had ripped away the comfortable illusions the town had wrapped itself in for years. Sheriff Morrison called an emergency town meeting at the Baptist church, and 200 people showed up packing the pews until there was standing room only. Morrison stood at the pulpit, his sheriff's star conspicuously absent from his uniform. 22 years ago, I lost my daughter to suicide because I told her to stay with a man who was hurting her. Last night, I almost lost Jennifer Brennan for the same reason." His voice carried to the back of the church. "This department, this town, we've been complicit in violence by choosing comfort over courage. That ends today." He outlined new policies: mandatory domestic violence training for all officers, third-party oversight of the sheriff's department, a victim advocacy program staffed by survivors, and a community hotline monitored by people outside law enforcement. If you see something, you report it. If you hear something, you speak up. We don't look away anymore. We don't make excuses. We protect the innocent, even when the guilty wear badges we recognize." Deputy Carter stood. "Sir, I want to head the domestic violence unit. I'm young. I don't have the old assumptions. Let me build something better." Morrison nodded. "Approved. You start Monday." Dr. Helen Foster rose next, her aged voice steady despite the weight of confession. "I treated Jennifer Clark 47 times in 5 years, documented every injury, and I reported none of them because I was afraid of losing my practice, of Dalton's retaliation, of making waves." She looked around at her neighbors. "I'm announcing today free confidential screening for abuse victims at my clinic. No questions, no judgment, no police involvement unless you request it. And I'm training every healthcare worker in this county to spot and report abuse." 7 women stood in response. 7 women who'd been hiding their bruises under makeup and long sleeves. 7 women who'd been invisible until someone finally offered safety. Reverend Marshall approached the pulpit, and Morrison yielded. The old minister looked diminished, his usual confidence stripped away. "For 30 years I've preached submission. Wives, submit to your husbands. I've counseled women to endure, to forgive, to try harder." His hands shook on the pulpit. "I told Jennifer Clark her suffering was a cross to bear. I was wrong. Dangerously, sinfully wrong." He pulled out his prepared sermon notes, tore them in half. "Marriage is sacred, but safety is more sacred. Love is holy, but love that hurts isn't love at all. Starting Sunday, this church will be a sanctuary in the truest sense. a place where those in danger find protection, not platitudes. Some parishioners walked out. About 20, mostly older families, left in protest. But the remaining 180 stood and applauded. Maria Santos was recognized next. The immigrant woman approached the microphone with dignity, despite the whispers about her accent, her status. "I record violence for 5 years," she said simply. "I try to tell sheriff. He say mind my business, so I stay quiet, because I am immigrant, because I am afraid." She held up her cassette tapes. "No more quiet. Any woman need help, you come to Maria. I see you, I hear you, I believe you." The applause was thunderous. By evening, the legal wheels were turning. Dalton Clark was formally charged with attempted murder, domestic violence, assault with a deadly weapon, animal cruelty, and a dozen other offenses. His court-appointed attorney tried to argue PTSD from his job, childhood trauma, diminished capacity. The prosecutor wasn't buying it. Major James Brennan, U.S. Army JAG Corps, had taken emergency leave and flown in from Fort Bragg to handle the case personally. When he walked into the county courthouse, Tom was waiting. Father and son stared at each other across 3 years of silence. James had Tom's height, Sarah's gentle eyes, and a soldier's bearing that matched his father's. "I came as soon as I heard," James said. "About Jenny, about Emma, about everything." Tom's throat worked. "I didn't know you were JAG now." "Made it 2 years ago. You would have known if you'd returned my calls." No anger in the statement, just fact. "I was ashamed," Tom said simply, "of who I'd become, of what I'd failed to be." "You saved Jenny's life, Emma's life. You showed up when it mattered." James extended his hand. "That's a start, Dad, if you want to build on it." Tom took his son's hand, pulled him into an embrace neither had initiated in a decade. "I want to. God, I want to." "Then we start now, together. We prosecute the man who hurt my sister, and we rebuild what we broke." James stepped back, professional again, but with warmth underneath. "Dalton Clark is looking at 25 years minimum. I'll make sure of it." He did. 3 months later, Dalton accepted a plea deal. 25 years, no parole, mandatory counseling. In his statement to the court, he said only, "I became the monster I swore I'd never be. I deserve this." Jennifer's recovery was slow, measured not in days but months. The broken bones healed, the bruises faded. But the trauma required therapy twice a week, support groups, and the constant reminder that healing wasn't linear. Some days she was strong. Some days she couldn't get out of bed. "Abuse doesn't end when violence stops," her therapist explained. "You're rewiring your entire sense of self. That takes time." Emma adjusted with the resilience of children, though nightmares plagued her for months. She drew pictures in therapy, dark scribbles that slowly transformed into recognizable shapes, then into scenes of safety, her, Tom, and Rex under a rainbow. Tom started a veteran support group in Whitetail County, meeting every Thursday at the church. 15 veterans showed up the first week, drawn by the story of the Marine who'd fought his way back from isolation. "PTSD doesn't excuse removing yourself from life," Tom told them. "It explains it. But explanations aren't excuses. We've got to show up anyway. Scared, broken, hurting, doesn't matter. We show up." The community fundraiser brought in $50,000, enough to cover Jennifer's medical bills and give her a fresh start. She enrolled in nursing school, resuming the dream Dalton had made her abandon. Tom sold his isolated cabin and bought a house in town, closer to support, closer to life. One afternoon, 6 months after that terrible night, the doorbell rang. Tom opened it to find a woman from the German Shepherd Rescue Organization. "Mr. Brennan, I'm Sarah Chen. I heard about Rex, about what he did. We have a dog. He's a retired military working dog. Nobody's adopted him because he's older. He's got hip problems. He's expensive to maintain." "I'm listening," Tom said. She showed him a photo, a German shepherd, graying around the muzzle, one ear scarred, eyes that had seen too much. "His name's Max. He needs someone who understands what he's been through." Tom looked at the photo for a long moment. "I'll take him." "Don't you want to meet him first?" "I know him," Tom said quietly. "I know exactly who he is." When Max arrived a week later, Emma ran to greet him. The old dog approached carefully, gently, and when Emma hugged him, his tail wagged with the simple, uncomplicated joy that only dogs possess. Tom knelt beside them, one hand on Max, the other on Emma's shoulder. "Is he as good as Rex?" Emma asked. "Nobody's as good as Rex," Tom said honestly, "but Max is good in his own way, and he needs us like we need him." Max looked up at Tom with understanding in his brown eyes. Another warrior, another survivor, another chance at redemption. Some wounds never fully heal. Some losses are permanent. But in their place sometimes grows something new, not a replacement, a continuation. Spring arrived in Montana 6 months later, melting the snow to reveal green grass and wildflowers that bloomed across the meadows like promises kept. Tom stood in the backyard of his new house, larger than the cabin, closer to town, filled with the sounds of family, and watched Emma play with Max in the sunshine. The dining table that evening held 3 generations, Tom at the head, Jennifer beside him, Emma chattering about school, and James with his wife and 2 young sons who'd driven up from their new posting at Malmstrom Air Force Base. The laughter was tentative at first, rusty from years of silence, but it grew warmer as the meal progressed. Jennifer's nursing school acceptance letter sat on the mantel, a tangible symbol of reclaimed dreams. Her injuries had healed visibly, bones mended, scars fading, though the invisible ones would take longer. She wore her hair down now, no longer hiding behind turtlenecks and long sleeves. Small victories, but victories nonetheless. "Grandpa," Emma said during dessert, "Mrs. Patterson at school said her family does gratitude circle on Sundays. Can we do that?" Tom glanced at Jennifer, who nodded encouragement. "Sure, sweetheart. You start." Emma considered seriously. "I'm grateful for Grandpa Tom, who saved us, and for Rex, who died protecting us, and for Max, who helps me not be scared at night." She paused. "And for Mama being strong." Jennifer's turn. "I'm grateful for second chances, for my dad who finally came home, for a community that woke up, for being alive to see spring." James added, "I'm grateful my father taught me that it's never too late to show up, that courage is doing the right thing even when you're terrified." Tom's voice was thick when he spoke. "I'm grateful for a 7-year-old girl who was brave enough to knock on a stranger's door, for a dog who taught me that love means staying even when it hurts, for a daughter who forgave me when I didn't deserve it." Later, after everyone had gone home, Tom and Emma took Max for an evening walk. The dog moved slower than Rex had, his aging hips making him careful on uneven ground, but his tail wagged constantly. "Do you still miss Rex?" Emma asked. "Every day," Tom admitted. But missing him doesn't mean I can't love Max. Hearts don't run out of room. Like how you love me and Mama, even though you loved Grandma Sarah and Aunt Rebecca? Exactly like that. They walked in comfortable silence until Emma spoke again. Grandpa, what if Daddy gets out of prison someday? Tom knelt to her level, making sure she saw the certainty in his eyes. He won't hurt you, I promise. But if you're scared, that's okay. Being brave doesn't mean not being scared. It means doing what matters even when you're scared. Like you coming to save us in the blizzard? Like you running through that blizzard to find help. You were braver than me, sweetheart. When winter returned the following year, Tom stood on his porch watching the first snowfall with Max beside him and Emma bundled in a coat at his side. Think it'll be bad, Grandpa? Probably, but we'll face it together. And if someone needs help like Mama did? Tom smiled. Then we help them. That's what family does. Max barked agreement. Inside, Jennifer called that dinner was ready. They turned toward the warm light spilling from windows, toward the sound of family, toward home. Tom paused at the threshold, one hand on Emma's shoulder, the other resting on Max's head. He thought of Rex buried behind his old cabin, of Sarah and Rebecca in their graves, of all the people he'd lost along the way. But he also thought of Jennifer laughing in the kitchen, of James visiting every month, of Emma's nightmares growing fewer, of a community learning to protect its vulnerable. You know what I learned? Tom said to Emma. What? Home isn't a place. It's not four walls and a roof. He gestured toward the warm house, toward Jennifer moving behind the windows. Home is the people who won't let you face the cold alone. Emma hugged his leg. Then we're home, Grandpa. Yeah, sweetheart. We're home. They went inside together, Max trotting faithfully beside them, and closed the door against the falling snow. Outside, the world turned white and quiet. But inside, in the warm circle of lamplight and love, 3 generations and a rescue dog proved that broken things can heal. Not perfectly, not completely, but enough. Always enough. Sometimes the hardest door to open is the one we've closed on the people who need us most. Tom Brennan spent 15 years believing his brokenness disqualified him from love, from family, from mattering to anyone. But when a desperate child knocked in a blizzard, he learned something profound. It's never too late to show up. We all carry wounds, from war, from loss, from choices we wish we could unmake. We tell ourselves our families are better off without our damage. That distance is protection. But what if they need us anyway? Not perfect, not healed, just present. Rex taught Tom that loyalty isn't about being whole. It's about staying even when you're scared. That 7-year-old girl running barefoot through a killing storm? She didn't need a perfect grandfather. She needed one brave enough to answer the door. Think about the doors you've closed, the calls you haven't returned, the relationships you've let freeze because you were afraid of failing again. What if, like Tom, your broken places are exactly what equips you to save someone? Home isn't perfection. It's the people who face the cold together. Have you ever let fear keep you from someone who needed you? What door might you need to open today? Share your story below. Your courage might be the knock someone else needs to hear.